Okay, it looks like we're live. Um, hmm. If we can make all this behave itself. There we go. Yes. Well, welcome back, and nice to see you if you're watching. It's just me tonight. I don't know where Graham is. He's busy doing things at the moment, so he's rushing from pillar to post. But I'm sure he'll be back next week or in the near future. So it's just me. So I will check the messages from time to time and have a look at what's going on. And yeah, so do share thoughts and observations and insights as and when you feel like it, and I will have a regular little look at them. Now tonight I have a request, and this request is really about dealing with dense foliage. So that's going to be fun. So first thing I'll do is I'll do my palette. Put some gloves on, I think. One for each hand should be enough. Ooh. Spatula, that bodes well. And yeah, I've got two light sources on this to make it a bit more interesting, bring a bit of light into the background, which is going to be important. But yeah, it's an interesting subject matter because it's a lot of noise, a bushy plant like this, and very few things to really get a grip on. It's hard to decide what's an important edge and what isn't. Now, obviously, I've got this leaf that sticks out here, and that's going to be fairly important. And there's a few outward shapes, and there's a few shapes in between. And the longer I look at it, the more greens I'm seeing, and I don't want it to be super complicated. So I want a simple little collection of greens that are going to do most of the work. And that's my first thought when it comes to approaching the foliage. I'm going to need to understand where my lights and darks are. And I'm also having a little think about the surface I'm creating, so I can make some real differences. You can hear me over the scraping. Some real differences between the paint surfaces to represent different aspects of the plant, especially sort of the shadow to the light, where the color becomes more intense. There's a lot more I can do with, what would you call it, the presence of the paint, if you like, which comes down to sort of how thick it is or how oily it is, or whether it's sort of thinned out and a bit sort of flat and dead in the background. I can use some of those different qualities to create separation between different areas of what is a mostly very similar greens in the plant. There's also this squash and this knife in the foreground, and this dotty red fabric. It's a red fabric with little tiny dots on it. It's quite possible you can't even see on the screen. But take my word for it. It's covered in little dots. Now, I don't think I'm going to get around to doing the dots. I don't think they introduce anything particularly useful. So they don't reveal the form particularly. There's no sort of clearly visible pattern or order that's going to show me how the fabric folds up. I may change my mind later on, so that'll be an interesting one. That'll be one to try and figure out. So yeah, so there's that, and also there's going to be the thing of the change in the temperature of the light from it's cool on this side and warm on this side, and I think that'll be interesting too. So yeah, I'm doing my normal preparation, which is scraping off the palette. You can tell I haven't used this one all week, so all this paint's dry. But yeah, it sort of gives me time to think this bit, which I quite like. It gives me a bit of time to consider what's coming next, visualize even to some degree, sort of thinking about what my next palette, the palette for this painting, is going to look like as I'm scraping this one off. There's evidence of different types of colours from last week that were mixed in different ways. That green that just went away was the sort of a thin imprimatura that I put on first. Excuse me. Yeah, so hang on, bit of space. I'm going to start off with some sort of thinned paint and try and get my head around the tonal stuff, because it would be easy to skip it. I'll start going straight for colours, but I'm going to need some feedback from my surface to tell me whether I'm light or dark. And to begin with, this is going to be maybe composition to begin with, really. Oh. I think I'm going to go with, should I go with, no, I'm just going to go with grey to begin with. I'm not going to, because the reds and the greens, you know what, actually I think I can use something a bit bluer. Let's get that brown out. Yeah. And let's make a fair bit of a sort of a bluey black. And too brown. It has, oh, there's a unwanted hair in it too. Okay, a bit more blue. Okay, great. And what else? And that'll do it. Let's make some thin inky paint. And I'm going to start light, like almost like a wash. Just make some big shapes. And it's going to start with this sort of loop across here, and then the rest of this plant sort of coming into here. And then this sort of squash, and then this sort of space. Maybe that's not far enough over. Yeah, I think that needs to. And then the pot, which I'll put the wand around here. And that would put the knife down there, which is maybe too far off the front, or maybe I'll leave the knife out completely. That's like that. Just like this. I'll put a bit more paint in it now. and say, yeah, I'm quite happy with that shape. This is going to tip off the top layer if I do that. Do I want it to escape off the edges, or do I want it to sort of behave itself? That's a hard one to decide, actually. So in terms of the scale I'm working at now, that's going to put inside here somewhere. Might work. Yeah, I'll go with this for the moment and see where it takes me. I can always change my mind as I go along. Maybe pull a bit of light out of that. A few dark shapes here. Yeah, a few dark shapes there. And there's the pot. There's some in the middle of this. Yeah, it sort of feels pretty good at the moment. Actually, I might move the knife over a bit to the left, just for the sake of balancing up a composition. Put a bit of extra dark in there as well. I don't know what's going to happen up here, but yeah, maybe that will be, move that down. Maybe this will be down here somewhere. Okay, so I'm finding a few of those bigger shapes sort of creeping in. But I've already got a grey surface. So if I go in with some lights just to try and sort of find those negative spaces, I should be all right with that. That would be the knife handle as it is here. No. Yeah, so proper vague at the moment, but I've got some relationship between what's here and what's here. And now I can, before I fine tune it or tidy it up in any way, I can have a think about whether I like it or not. And just sort of I'll do a few outlines just to make it clear in my mind where these different objects go before I do anything too decisive. Yeah, definitely move that knife across. I'll invent a bit more of that red fabric as well as I go. So finding a few more subtle negative shapes. This is over a little bit. I don't know. Too much to tell there. But yeah, if I start with the big shapes, I can work my way towards the smaller ones, and it should make sense. That's going to stick out a bit more. But luckily, I have room. I'll lose that bottom edge because I don't care for it anyway. Yeah. A few well observed bits and pieces should help me sort of pin down what's where. But again, it's turning into nonsense marks now because there's no way of putting any kind of clear line or detail or anything like that. But there's something there, something I can work with. I've got this slight angle with the background. It works up. Yeah, a lot of guesswork at this point. Yeah. Do announce yourselves. Do say hello. I'm going to see who's appeared already in the chat. If anyone. No one. Is it just me? It's okay if it's just me. I don't mind. Okay. So I've got a few bits of sort of leftover paint from previous paintings. Especially for the ground, I quite like to use paint that's sort of been on the palette for a while because it's already thickened up a little bit. It's got a bit thicker and stickier. So if I add a little bit of thinners, it makes it mobile again, but the thinners evaporate and leave behind what is less mobile paint than it would have been were it kind of just out of the tube. And it means that subsequent layer goes over it that little bit better because the next layer is slightly more liquid than the previous layer. They play together nicely. So how's the best way to do this? Next biggest brush. Take a little bit of that brown, a little bit of that grey. I'll keep this some distance off the light colours, so it's not really tonally going to be a lot brighter than what's already there. I'm going to leave it a little bit of yellow as well, just to warm it up slightly. Tiny bit of mixing white. There we are. Now, a little bit of thinners here, and I can really start to kind of pin down some of these clearer shapes. You know what I haven't done? I haven't done a proper shadow version, which is going to be, I'll do that now, I may as well. Let's have a little bit of the brown, a little bit of red. Let's see what that does. Should still be reasonably light, which I think that is. So I can work more lights into it afterwards. That's the direction I want to be going. If I put something too bright on it now, I've kind of got nowhere to go when it's later on when it needs to be brighter. Now I'm looking at this shape here, and I can see this kind of negative space. Like that. And we've got this. I haven't got enough dark information in there to actually pull that out, so let's go back into that. Is that here? Yeah, it's roughly here. It's there. Let's just bring it all out a little bit. We can change the shape of that later on. Now I've got this shape, I can kind of jump across and say, yeah, I'm going to put in that angle there. There's this bit. These darks are definitely going to escape off the top. There we go. There's a few shapes, and they're cooler shapes. That's going to be smaller, narrower. So I'm going to dig in there. Very hard to pin that down, but something like that. Those shapes make sense to me now. I can kind of piece them together as they go. Before I get too carried away, I can also jump across from that across to here and say there's a light shape about there. Or maybe it's a bit lower. No, that's about right. Somewhere around there. And there's another one here. And then we get into that warmer colour. Another one under here. I'm still relating it to that first shape. So if I go across from here, maybe that's a bit lower down. There's another shape here. There's another shape there. And then there's this one and this one. There we go. Okay, yeah, it's making sense to me now. I'm sort of happy with this. Well, I've still got that warm colour on. I've got this shape. What's that? I'll go in there, a little dip, and then there's this shape on top. There we go. And then I'll get back to the lights again. It'll be a little warmer this time because it's still the same brush, but yeah, so more sort of negative spaces. I recognise this is a plant, and the language of the plant is probably more important than any exact sort of representation of its shape. The more I can hang on to it, the more I can reconnect with that information when I revisit something. Otherwise, it could just turn into a sort of a mess of shapes which are interchangeable one from the other, and then you don't know what to put where. Now I'm just relating that to that. This is here, it's going to go in there. So yeah, that feels pretty good. And then that's going to give me this space here. There is going to be a leaf that escapes off the top of the image, but let's go back to this. It's going to stick out a bit further. Yeah, that leaf might really make the most of this space, but it's got space to wander into. That's pretty good. Okay, so I've got my big shapes roughly guessed at now. There's hardly any paint on the surface yet, so I'm certainly not committed to anything. Well, I've got this yellowy creamy colour. Actually, it does work pretty well for this contrast here. And a little bit of this over here. Oh, crikey. Look at that. No, it's completely worn off now. Right. Okay, that's that. Before I do any more, let's do a couple of reds for that background. Get some cadmium, put a bit of alizarin in it, just to make almost my root red. I'm not going to use this directly anywhere at the beginning, possibly not at all. What's on the palette knife has already dulled it down slightly, so that's a head start. And I'm going to take some of that and make it a bit yellower and lighter. And go a bit more cadmium with that if necessary. Yeah, turn it up a little bit. And another one. Use some of this grey. I'll keep the tiniest bit of that red just so I can return to it if I need to. Yeah, kind of a dull red there. Kind of want to keep using bigger brushes here, but I think I'll go down one side. What's this? Yeah, a couple of these will be fine. I don't want to use too much thinners either, but just a tiny bit, just to get it to spread out so I can see that colour and what it does, where it goes. Some of those reds there. I've got some of these shapes here. It's just in that rough vicinity. I'm not going to be... Now I look at it, I kind of think, oh, they're probably bluer. Some darker reds in here, definitely around there. Around here. It brightens up. Where else? Oh, that's interesting. There you are. There's a shape I can use. Great. Yeah. Something like that. Sort of running out of dark shapes to paint here. There's a bit more in there. Quite a bit more over here. Okay. We can hint at a little bit of shadow in this pot, which is going to be around here somewhere. And a few of those darks in the middle. Yeah. I'll warm them up with a little bit of red underneath. This will all settle down soon enough and dry a bit. And then I'll be able to work over it. Yeah, a few placeholders for shadows. I don't know how much to trust my drawing yet, but it seems to be working okay, so I'll go with it. I can always change my mind later on if it doesn't work out. Great. I'm just going to use the same brush here. Put some of these lights on, see what they do. So I'm going to go to the brightest reds at the beginning. Yeah, that needs to be a lot more crimson than that. Not that does. A bit more like it. Yeah, put a few bright reds on. Again, it's not. It feels like it's not light enough. It's nowhere near light enough. It's a very, very weird colour, this. Yeah, needs to look more like that. Maybe it's the effect of those dots. I haven't mixed this enough. So being overly fussy, I think that's where the end of the knife handle can go. Once there's a red in there, I can change it. I can say this needs to adjust, but that tonal change is going to be really important. Let's just scrub some of that in there just to hold it in place. Maybe that'll be close enough. There we go. once that's scrubbed in, this is very flat paint. It's not doing anything in terms of the texture and the surface, but it kind of holds its place. The next thing I'll do, I guess, is have a little look at these greens and see how many of them I want. I'm going to put them along the bottom. Once I've got those, the palette should be kind of set. So I'm going to, oh, crikey, sorry, the palette's gone off. Didn't even realise that had happened. Come on. Hey. Yeah, so there's definitely these very dark greens. I'm going to make some more of this black, which I did before. Bit more blue in that. There we are. I'll do it. Okay, I've got this viridian here, which you have to be very, very careful of. It will be useful for some darks. So I'm going to make a sort of a second black almost. Using a little bit of alizarin just to soften that down. If I take a little bit of so incredibly blue. But there's places where this kind of color can feature. From where I am up here, in this bit, I can kind of see that. There's other bits. Let's just get that nice, completely mixed. Where there's an awful lot more yellow at play, and I'll put that over this side, and this will be just the slightest bit of pollution from what's on the knife will turn this yellow into a green anyway. But yeah, so we want to go all the way in between these two, and we want a few core colors that are going to do the job in between. So I'm going to get some more of this grey. Just going to put a bit of yellow in it. Yeah, and there's this sort of muddy brown green that's in here. And I'm looking for it. I can see it even a bit more yellow than that, actually. Does it need to go on a journey more this way? I would say no. So this is sort of a dark version of the same relationship. The cleaner, bluer one, a bit more like this. Make it a bit grayer. And each of those has got a slightly lighter version. You know what, I'm going to mix all of that up. More grey in it. And then various little relationships in between. Am I getting too caught up already? And this is just for the dark underneath. Ooh. You can definitely get a little bit greener than that, I think. There's not enough paint here to really make a difference, but there's enough to test it out and find out if the colours do what I want them to. So I'm going to attempt that now. say, let's start with this one. It's the lighter one. And if I can go back to my negative spaces, I can kind of find my place. There's a bit of that in here. That looks pretty good, actually. Quite happy with that. Where else can I see it? Yeah, definitely under here. And I'm relating back to those negative spaces I made in order to understand what's working. So there's a bit of that in here. Let's see if it does the thing. That's probably enough. Let's go for some of the darker one. Let's see what that does. It gets a bit darker over here. Still too brown there. So I'm going to go across, make a bluer one. Try that. That's a bit more like it. Yeah, that's good. There's still room for an extra dark in here, but at the moment, these will kind of hold the places where there's these variations. Yeah, some extra greens in there. Some under here. It's all pretty cloudy. If I go to the... If I go back to this Viridian, mix a bit more red in there. There's places where this gets really dark. I'm just going to put the tiniest bit of white in. Quite blue. I'll make it a bit greener. I don't want it to be too sharp a colour. Tricky not to though. Yeah, maybe put a bit of the dark in there. It looks pretty good. There's a few places where I want this to go. Let me get another brush. I think I'll keep a brush for the very dark darks. If I'm going too small already with the brushes, we'll see. Yeah, okay, where am I? So I've got this shape here. I've got this shape here that goes in front of it. And so we've got this variation already about... Oh, you know what? No, that goes up here. Okay. It's going to get a bit redder again. If that was going to go, this sort of a leaf that goes underneath, I'm doing an outline here, but that's just so that I can keep my mind on my drawing. It is dark around the edge. There's a sort of a lost edge. And there's this shadow colour under here. Like I said, I kind of want to keep these first shapes fairly flat. I could use a bit of thinners just to sort of spread it out. So I think I might do that. Well, that's too much. I can kind of dot around where all this goes. There's some, yeah, some dark that go through the middle of that. Down into here. Where else? There's some of those deep greens. If I travel across there, there's a few here. There's a few in there. You know what? I'm just going to chuck a bit more of that in. Because that's the whole point of this at this stage, is it's getting a little bit watery. Yeah, I've got that shape there, so there's going to be a a leaf here. So I could, yeah, some of that blueness in there. I think I'll start with the blueness actually, and I'm going to work up brighter colours after that. Yeah, it's going to get gone over, as is that, but it's giving me a structure. There we go, there's that big leaf shape there. This one in between. A few yellow's going to go into that, but up until, doesn't quite matter just yet. There's going to be some in there, some in here. I'm getting a bit looser now, I'm getting my head around it. There's some blues. I think that's the thing, I just need to keep this kind of patchy. But now I've found my way in, I can see a structure, I can kind of trust it. And again, this is all still quite thin paint. We come back to it as well. Yeah, so now as my eyes darting around looking for different things, it's finding where I was and sort of returning to it. And so there's almost like this sort of maze of shapes and things that I've been wandering around for a while, and now I'm starting to notice little landmarks and find my way in. There we go. There's a lot of artists make more beautiful marks than I do. Quite interested in the problem solving aspect, but I could do more to just make the paint more appealing. But you know, I'm interested in what I'm interested in. I've kind of got to follow that. Now, put some of that green in these reds here, make it extra dark where it needs to be. Smashing. What else can I do? Okay, I can go back to my warmer greens. Now there's a bit more context for them. Lots of dull colours that are going to help underneath the surface, especially in the background back here. They're going to show through and, oh crikey, what am I seeing? Yeah. Under here. That'll do a lot. Including this, that's going to go over there. There'll be a bit more bright colours to come into that, but in the meantime, a few more shapes. Right, what am I finding? I'm finding a bit of blue in there. Oh, that's kind of the colour I'm going to want up here. Now that's got a bit paler. Is that it? Is that not it? That's the bluest leaf, so I'm going to put this in as a placeholder anyway. Oh yeah, no, I was looking down here, wasn't I? Darker, a bit yellower. Right, something in between here. Yeah. Yeah, there's a few sort of denser greens that are going in here. Oh, there's a whole extra leaf I left out, which is kind of there. Get some dark colours in on that afterwards. That's going in that gap. Okay, now we're getting into more detail than I'm prepared to paint, but the language of the plant is starting to emerge. No, that's too blue. What's behind this? I'm going to go back to that murky green. Yeah, still a bit too brown. Yeah. I'm going to have a little pause here, have a look at my messages. Thank you for sending messages. And then I might mix up quite a bit more of the kind of colours I want. Now I've got an idea of what they are. Cat's found his way downstairs. Oh. Hi, Josie. Good stuff. Nice to have someone at the other end checking on me. Yeah, this is an interesting point, actually. This could be quite a slow painting if I'm not careful, but if I speed up at this point and mix the colours I need in the quantities I need, I can really make something hopefully quite exuberant. Yeah, so I'm really have to build a big palette out of this. Oh, just had one of those sort of rather intense concentration periods. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I've got the fire on, so I've been joined. It's like you can smell heat or something. Yes, the cat is much too lazy to be endothermic. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so these few dull colours on the palette here are actually going to be the launch pad for the brighter colours that come next, among which are these two quite intense ones at the front. There's almost this sort of, not an anxiety exactly, but a sort of oh, I have to mix all this colour sort of moment. Oh, more fluff. Great. And I've got nowhere to put my brushes down, which is irritating me. Down the table, apparently. Right. Okay. Let's give this a good look. I might have to put out new colour. Really take my time with this. But even then, it'll only be like, might be 10 minutes of mixing, possibly. But once that's done, I'll be armed. I'll be equipped to make the painting I want to paint. Okay. Some Taylor sign in green, same as Viridian pretty much. it's a really powerful paint, very high tinting strength, so I'm not going to need an enormous quantity. That might be enough, and that bit's got lumps in it, so I don't want that. Could have gone. Same with the blue. It's just going to be lumps if I'm not careful. So I'll put some more blue out. I already did the brown, so I'll have a bit more burnt sienna. Right. Blue. That's enough. What am I doing for yellow? Oh, there's my white. I'll put that there. I'll need that. Red, I think I'm okay for at the moment. I'll put that out as well. Some mixing white. I'll have that. And that's the key to mixing decent quantities of paints, to make sure you have enough white on the palette. I'll keep using that as long as I can until it stops doing the job. I've got a cobalt blue here, so I think I might have a little bit of that as well, just to create a bit of variety with the blues. I could do the same with the yellows as well. I could put a bit of lemon yellow out. Or maybe yellow ochre. Yeah, let's have a little bit of yellow ochre. Just to create as much variety within those greens as possible, because the danger of it all turning into one big mushy green is not inconsiderable. What else is in here? Yeah, a little bit more yellow. Nice. Anything else? That'll do for the moment, I think. Right, where was I? Oh yeah, so let's mix some more of this black for a start. Decent quantity of it. There we are. Slightly blue, slightly leaning towards the blue. Let's put that there. Let's make some more of this, gather up the rest of that yellow. That browny green, stick a bit more blue in that, I think. Yeah, it's still quite intense there. Oh yeah, there's a few bits where that can go. It's sort of a bit disgusting, that green, simply just because it's the muddiness. It's the worst of yellow and worst of blue because it's all got brown in it. So for the dark, I'm going to tip that slightly towards the Viridian. Let's see what it does. That's a good strong colour. That's a good core colour as well. If I take a bit of that and a bit of the black and add a little bit of white to it. A bit more yellow. Maybe the cadmium yellow makes it a bit sickly. But yeah, that's yeah, that's suitably intense for some of the lights actually. Again, I've still only got this tiny quantity. I started off with all this paint and then it breaks up into different satellites and you've hardly got any. I'm not going to need loads. Same thing with this green here. Let's just put a bit of white in it. You know what? Let's put enough white in that it makes a quantity that is considerable enough. It's not a million miles off that colour. Make it a bit grayer. And I think maybe having intense colours is really going to help them separate out as well. A bit more blue in that too. The last bit is to get some of this green, put a bit of white in it, lighten it up. Here's a lot of greens, so I've got to look for the accents to the greens because they're the thing that's really going to make it play along. I've got some orangey colours like that red, bit of yellow ochre. Let's take a bit of green, mix that up. Okay, yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, I can go back here to the clean colours. More of that pale red I mixed earlier. Now, as it approaches the orange, it's a bit, well, it's a bit less yucky. And there's a bit more paint in there. There's still not loads. That's too much of that. Now, I should be able to start getting this locked in actually. There's one last one which is sort of actually starts with this green but then quite a bit of black in it because it gets very dark. Maybe a tiny little bit of red of the alizarin. Let's see what that does. Yeah. Now I'm going to get a smaller brush and I'm going to go around with some of these darks and just get them into their places because it will give me more of a visual map of what goes where. So there's a bit there, there's a bit there, and a bit that goes underneath here. There's a few of these sorts of structures in this leaf. There's quite a few that go in that direction. There's still room for more of this afterwards as well. There's a bit there. Oh, Ricky. Needs to get bluer. I don't think there's enough blue in the black that I mixed. Where else in here? Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of shapes there. Done a few shapes underneath here, but that's okay. Put a bit more dark underneath. Couple of darker shapes from the bottom somewhere. In there. What else? I'm losing my place here, so regroup, regather. A little bit of extra dark in that. There's a place in here. Switch my microphone off and get annoyed about delivery driver who parks on the double yellow lines directly outside the house and just leaves his engine running, even though I've asked him time and time and again not to. So I think I might have to go to the yogurt throwing stage. Or I was thinking of making one of those, they put them outside what do you call them? Supermarkets, mosquitoes they call them, make this really high-pitched whine, which is really unpleasant. So I could do it to him when he goes and gets back in his car again. Just going to go and deal with that for a second. little break. He's pulled forward about 1.5 meters, as if that fixes anything. Oh. Okay, I'm going to do a little, going to have a little break, put my little thing on. Irritated now. And I'll be back in 5. See you in a sec. Back again. Oh, got a few people watching. Do make yourselves known. Do chip in with any questions or comments or suggestions. Always appreciated. So at this stage, there's quite a lot going on here. I am going to need some more of those background colours. They're going to make a real difference. So before I really get going, let's put some more of that out. That's the last of my unbleached titanium. Oh, I have some more somewhere. Right. Yeah, let's put that here. It's actually quite a nice soft colour as it is. I think it's almost not a bad starting point. I put a bit of yellow in it and it almost sort of went a bit too cool, but I'll try it now. The yellow ochre. The camp yellow. Right. That's that pink I was talking about. Let's put a bit of yellow ochre in that as well, just to soften that down. Make it a little bit grayer too. Back again. Oh, well, welcome to my live stream of asking people to turn their engines off outside my flat. There's an extra bit of pinkness to that, which I like. I'm going to need that. There's also a sort of a deeper brown I can dip into to darken it afterwards, but this might be okay. So there's some background colours. So it's quite a well-loaded palette at this point. There are still a few brighter colours. I've got the very dark represented here. I've got the very yellow represented here. They might come out of some brush mixes. I might have to stop and mix a new colour out of those afterwards. I haven't got much of a context for this. That's still underpainting, but I'll come to that. So yeah, I was chucking some of these darks on just as little placeholders. So there's one there. Yeah, that's probably enough of that. Put the knife down. I'm going to go more to this middling green. See if I can find a few. I'm seeing that colour going in there. Right, oh, that's nice. Some of this, especially when it's in shadow, is going to look like the light shining through the leaf. Especially with a few bits of yellow added on top. I don't want to overload the paint because there's more paint to go on top of here. I'm still in these warmer colours, so same kind of thing under here. This is where it gets a bit thicker. That's yellower behind there. There we go. Right, now we're creating a bit of a difference. So where else does this yellow go? We'll find a few places where it makes sense. No, I can't see it anywhere. Oh, this is interesting. This is sort of starts to come apart here. No, that's a different leaf. Blah blah blah. A few of those too yellow. I'll go back to this one, somewhere in between the two. It gets greener again over here. And keep reloading that brush. Yeah, definitely visiting some slightly yellower versions of these now. And kind of a so there's some quite intense colours. There's also some weaker ones too. And I don't want to try and do every last bit of detail. I just want to sort of suggest the main thing that's going on. And in that respect, I've got to be quite careful of these more intense colours. This brown is too brown. There's a darker murky green, which kind of goes under, yeah, goes under here. A little bit in there. Yeah, a bit more of that. That's the thing I was looking at earlier. Where else? A bit in here. A bit in there. Okay. There's a bit more of that sort of warm yellowy green. It's going to go in here. And that's, there you go. That's a good ground colour for it. There's some more lights to go on top. Yeah, so there's a very warm green to that leaf. Some interesting shapes as well. Just slightly more, what would you call that? Oh, this really changes in different bits. Okay. It's quite a sort of strong, strident green colour in here. And that's going to define the shape, but the lights on top are really going to have an effect. Yeah, that's suitably dark. That's a bit of the language going on. There's a weaker, paler, bluer one. Now, if I put blue into this yellowy green and lighten it ever so slightly, I've got a brush mix which will probably do for a few little changes, like this one in the background. That's good. So it's really pushed it back. Where else does that go in the background? Maybe for a few highlights, maybe a little bit of that in there. Or maybe a bit of how this one kind of goes across. And that should be yellower. Again, back to that strident green. It's going to have some yellowy greens landing on top of it. We can carve out some of these shapes and some of the shadows as well. There's a bluer version on top, but I'm not going to make it weaker this time. I'm going to put that on there. Or even bluer than that in places. There we go, all the way up to that. This is making a bit of a separation between different parts of it. Yeah, we're seeing all sorts of things in here now. Before I start going in with any highlights and brighter colours, which is what's going to finish it off, I could use, oh, you know what? A bit more of that over here. Let's have that bluer one again in here. Yeah, so talking about the blues, I'm going to get some of this cobalt. I'm going to mix it up just into a brush mix here, and I'm going to put it where there's already paint on the surface. But I want to create some separation, so I'm going to throw some of these things right back into the blues back here. It's not using it directly from the tube because it's mixing with what's on the brush, so it's a natural progression from the existing set of colours. Where else? Where else? Where else? Anywhere? Going. Oh no, that's too dark. Oh, you know what? There's a bit in the leaf above there, especially that dark edge. A few little gestures here and there. That'll do. Let's put a bit at the front of that. Okay, I've kind of ended up using just one brush here, so I'm going to spoil myself. I might get a new one on the go. A couple of things. And I'm going to have to do a bit more mixing. I'm going to take a bit of that green, put it here, take some of that very strong yellowy green, a little bit of mixing white. Let's see what that does. If this is really useful. So this is where it's the most intense, and it's going to go around here like this. Yeah, that's good. That's a really strong colour across there. And across there. And there. Keep reloading the brush. The paint's getting thicker, it's becoming more expressive. Quite happy with this so far. It's mixing on the surface a little bit, which is okay. Do a little neighbour to that, which is this intense green, which is going to be where it's showing through the gaps. Maybe I should have done a bit more background before I put these in, but that's okay. Where else is that going to go? Oh yeah, here we are. So I have a couple bits there. Still highlights to go on top of this, so in the meantime, especially at the front there, loads of extra green at the front. There's still going to be highlights on top. Did I use the knife for that? I did. Let's do some more. And then I'll add Viridian to shift it across to the greener greens. So I've got to go for the more yellowy ones first. And definitely across here. Whoop. Some extra green and yellow in there. Where else does it go? Whoop. It's not quite as strong anywhere else. There's a little hint of it here. There's a little hint of it on the tip of that there. And this is going to mix on the surface to a certain extent. So I'll put a few extra bits of green in there. And then some in here. A few bits at the edge. Extra bits of green in the middle here. Turn that up. Okay, something going on, something coming together. That's starting to appear now. Some of these extra intense greens showing through there and there and here where the light's showing through at the edges. Yeah, let's go back to that original one. Put some more of that in here. Extra intense greens in a few of these places, like in here. You can turn that up. Not quite sure about that. There's a few. Oh, definitely in here. So this is where the green is greenest. You create a bit of an edge there. Something to join in with these colours here. Okay, I've got this bluish brush here. I'm really going to just do a brush mix and see if I can create a bit of a difference. Maybe that's too bluish, somewhere in between. This is the danger. This is the thing I first discovered when I started going out doing landscape stuff, is that first of all, green is a nightmare. And also, you really have to exaggerate the differences. Now, I honestly can't know if there's some future bit of knowledge that I'm yet to discover, perhaps in the process of discovering, which is that exaggeration that you do when you're outside doesn't apply to indoor plants, because there's just something, I don't know, different lighting conditions. Who knows what could come into it. But this is the nature of the discovery, I guess. Let's put a bit of a dark edge up there. That's nice. And let's put a bit more of a light edge along here. That'll do it. And then let's go for that greener colour. And then here, again, lighter again. So now I'm very much in the realm of brush mixes now. Is there any other bit that seems more important? Not really. I'll put a bit of that. So a lot of it comes down to where are the edges of one leaf that make it distinct from another. This is where the actual titanium white will come in. I'm going to put in a few of these light shapes now, and hopefully that will really make a difference. No, there's too much of an edge on that. Yeah, a few bits in there. Don't need detail in that, ignore that. A little bit of a highlight here. Okay, there is a highlight that goes at the tip of that leaf here, and one at the edge of that. And where else? A couple of little bluish highlights along there. Not sure I've got those shapes just right, but there you go. Done it now. Anything else on the inside? I don't think so. Proper highlights now. That's the brightest highlight along there. I'm going to keep reloading the brush. It's going to keep mixing on the surface, but that's okay. Reload the brush again, and then the brightness travels into that gap. Mix on the surface here. There you go. To point to that. Oh, a little bit of an edge on here. Is that? Oh, right. Okay, there's quite a few highlights on this leaf here. I'll put a bit more of that yellow into it. And they're going to go there and there and across here and here. Around there and there. Not sure if I'm happy with that, but I do need another color. I need another brush. Honestly, I think I can probably leave that. I'm going to bring properly a little yellowy highlight in there. Where else? Where else? Have I missed any? I don't think so. There's some very bluish ones. Very bluish highlights sort of exist on the inside, and it's all sort of broken marks. We're going to describe that better than anything. Yeah, okay, I think I've probably done all I can to this. Something's turned up, and I haven't gone too far with the colour. You know what? No, there is a little bit more. This is about the white and the yellow now. There's going to be a bit that comes into here, like this. Where else does the white and the yellow go? A bit into there. It's already in there. A bit more in here. Yeah, a bit more in there even. About there, that's already got it. Doesn't need it on this side. And some bluish lights. That's already, now it's already doing its thing. This doesn't need any more. That didn't help. Right, stop it, James. That's not that's not going to do it. There's an edge to that, and then there's a mark that goes across. Be very deliberate about that. That will do it. It doesn't have to all sort of make sense, and all the stems and the things all joined together properly. I think I can do a little bit more just with some highlights and some different directions of marks. I think I just did that thing where you put your, right, there's a green mix, but it's still, I went too bright too soon. Let's go with some sort of, rather than going along the direction of the highlight, go across it. There's no more really bright shiny highlights. Okay, I have sort of got very absorbed with that, but this was always about the plant. Oh, there's another couple of brushes down there with green on. So what I'm going to do very quickly, I don't think I'm going to finish this tonight, but I think I will go in with the background and then I'll come back with the other objects to sort of put them in afterwards. And I might spend a bit of time with this, thinking about what goes where. So let's go in with some of this pinky peachy colour. Yeah, that's nice. I'm already seeing other things, like the light coming through this. And there's a little highlight on there as well. To make some sort of clean edges in a few of these spaces, well, I think make a difference. Including there and in here. Anywhere else? Yes. A couple of these shapes are now quite well defined. That can go to a point. I can do that with the background colour there, you see. There we are. Okay, if I get into this other background colour now, and kind of work away from this and really start to sort of define the edges where I need them. I'm not going to be too super exact, but I'm going to work into this where I see them. How am I doing? Good time. Come see if anyone's pipes up with a comment yet. Oh, I can see from a distance something has appeared. It is possible it's just someone trying to sell me YouTube followers. The last thing I want. Hello, Hayley. Oh, that's very sweet. I've just realised something, which there might be quite a lot of shine on there. Oh, this is the sort of thing I can't do. Yeah, it is a little, yeah, it is a little bit of a dance around the surface. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get rid of that shine. That's it. Oh, that's a bit better, yeah. Okay, so we've got some of the reflections. We've got these different temperatures of greens and what have you. I'm kind of defining some of these edges in. There's a shadow that's going to go in there, but something like that. There we are. a bit more white in this now. Again, we go into brush mixes. It sort of cooled off a little bit as well. Okay. I don't want to go too light because I still want some sense to the highlights on the leaves, but there's a sort of certain description of the outlines of the leaves that this can do. I think it's quite helpful. Yeah, especially under here. So I can see where the pot's going to go. I'm sort of ready to paint that in. And I can go back in with this light here and I can really reinforce some of these negative shapes like that one. This one. If I get back into those reds again, I didn't mix loads more of the reds. I can do a bit of a brush mix now, just to really try and reinforce some of these edges. And there's some light under there as well, so it sort of swaps between the two. I go with some of the lights, and that was already, I discovered that was too orangey. Let's put some of this in here. Now, put a bit of extra red in there. The red's going to be really tricky, but reds always are, because paint is never quite red enough, or if it is red enough, it's too dark. So it's this sort of funny game you play, trying to sort of cheat the eye into seeing there's something. Well, that happened last week with the biscuits. There we go. We've got a bit of fabric in there as well. I'm running out of paint now, so I'm not going to fuss about that too much. Let's make a bit more of this. Let's just get a few of those yellows in. I might not have to do too much to this squash. Oh, that's too green. Maybe that'll do. I'll do something until I mix more colours, until I get the you know, the orange of the terracotta and all that kind of thing. I think from the point of view of getting my plant done, I'm going to go back to this very intense yellow. I'm going to put a bit more viridian, a bit more cadmium yellow. This is maximum green here. Let's just try and put a bit of that just at the edge, just to catch the eye, carry around. Bring it in here. Yeah. Yeah, that's not so bad. Quite pleased with that, and that's pretty much 2 hours. So for that plant going in like that, hang on screen. Yeah, I think that worked pretty well. I didn't really, the more neutral colours, I don't really need to see them, like the terracotta of the plant pot and that kind of thing. If I make a little brush mix with some yellow ochre. That might do to sort of hint at it. I'll get some more lights on later on. Yeah, this will go a bit lighter as well, but there's a sort of a placeholder, that's all right. And so using a bit more of that peachy background colour, that quite helps, doesn't it? Oh, I'm so irritated by this. I've been out and asked this guy if he could turn his engine off. He goes, "Oh, I've got the heating on." He's parked on double yellow lines outside my house, waiting for a delivery from a kebab shop that he's never going to have to make. It's meant to be his job. He knows I'm here. He knows his car is right outside my house. And now he's put his radio on really loud. And I'm going to have to move. I'm going to have to move. And I wonder, I might have to go to Scotland. So sorry, everybody. I don't want to get drawn into it, but it comes right through the floor. I've got a gate on the microphone, so hopefully you can't hear it. But I'm going to go out and calm down. I'll stay here at the moment. It's going to wind me up. Thank you for coming and watching. And oh, I haven't got my glasses on. I hope that was fun watching that plant arrive anyway. I think that was hi Michelle. I hope that was sort of interesting in some way. Yeah. Oh, what do you do? Has anyone got any advice of what you do if someone kept parking directly outside your house on double yellow lines and putting their radio on or leaving their engine running? What would you do? And you keep asking them. They know you're there and they know you hate it. And it's almost like he's trying to antagonize me. There's so many ways I could retaliate, and I want to rise above that and not be that person. But maybe the mosquito thing. Just focus it directly on his car. And when the sound gets above a certain level, it would just fire. So it wouldn't happen unless that was what was going on. That'd be a fun little thing to build. It should only take me about a month. Probably be better to paint pictures. Yeah. Thank you, Hayley. Thank you for everyone for coming along and watching and joining in. It was good to do. I think I needed to concentrate on something else tonight. And I will do a bit more to this. There'll be more to make it, to finish it, to bring it to sort of a close. There's things I'm not 100% happy with, and I'll probably have a little fiddle with them later when it's quiet. Yeah, there's a, and yet at the same time there's sort of this temptation to do all this extra detail, and it wouldn't help. It wouldn't be it wouldn't make the painting better. So yeah, I think I've got the language of the plant, and that's just sort of the way I would approach it. So someone else might have a very different view of what's important, what speaks to them as the language of the plant and how it feels to them. But as a process, for the big thing for me was creating those differences with those greens, and hopefully you can see. Let's see if I can zoom in. Yeah, there's these quite a few different greens in this journey across the palette of yellows into blues. Oh, so I've got a delay here, so yeah, and you get a bit of that variation as well with the I'll just use the left image. We travel around and look at the different things. Maybe we need to go a bit further there. Sorry, yes, it's the left part of the image. So hopefully you can see from my point of view where those different colours appeared. Journey between the two. Anyway, I'll leave that there, and I'll see you next time. Thanks very much for coming. And, yes, any requests in the meantime, let me know. Have a lovely week.